Hi everyone, in this video we'll take a quick look at chapter 12 of The Sun Also Rises. So I think it's important to kind of look at the book as a whole at this point and sort of take a peek at the setting and sort of compare the differences between the two because I think there's some relevance to that. When the book starts in Paris, which is often referred to as the City of Light, it's urban, it's decadent, there's a lot going on. Right, I think it's sort of the fashion center of the world, if you will, where Spain, specifically Pamplona, and of course later on Get, where Jake and Bill end up fishing, they're certainly much more rural, right? Certainly by comparison, it doesn't feel nearly as cosmopolitan. It doesn't feel nearly as sort of modernized, if you will, and also organic. And by that I mean sort of natural. The people that Jake and Bill meet in Pamplona, whether it's the Basque on the bus, the people in Get, the innkeeper, they are who they are, right? They're not putting up a front. They're not conforming to fashion standards and trying to be hip or sort of cultivating an image, if you will. It's just what you see is what you get with these people. On top of that, I think it's clear through this chapter the sense of tranquility that exists especially when they're fishing, right? And it's a noticeable difference between those early chapters where there's a little bit more of a frenetic pace where they're kind of just going from cafe to cafe to cafe and party and dance and this and that. And this person's coming over and, oh, have a drink. And then this person's coming by. And there's a lot going on. And other than the moments where, Jake is alone and, we have that moment where Jake falls asleep and he's trying to fall asleep thinking about Brett, there isn't a whole lot of a break. And even in that moment, right, there really isn't tranquility, right? Jake is tossing and turning, and and the gears in his mind are constantly turning. So, now in Brigitte, and then later on in Pamplona, right, we sort of have everything kind of slow down a little bit. And I think that's going to be key. Certainly, this chapter gives us more about Jake and Bill, right? They're clearly close. There's a lot of joking that goes on between the two of them, and for us as modern readers, it's a little bit of a challenge to pick up on, and sort of the sarcasm can be difficult to read because a lot of the references that Heming makes are a bit outdated. And that's sort of the danger for all writers, right? When you make references to what's popular, right, the pop culture of the time, you do run the substantial risk, right, that over time those references become outdated and your audience, well, just won't get them. And I think that kind of happens to some extent here. I think without looking up some of the names or googling that kind of thing, it's really hard to kind of get a feel for the banter between the two of them. That being said, there's still a very clear bond between the two of them, right? There's that certain sort of what we might call male bonding romance, if you will, between the two, to the point where, um, when they're talking about being expatriates, and Bill goes on and says, he's damned fond of Jake, and he could never say that back home, right? Because people would think he was gay, and they would he both he and Jake would be judged because of it, but that's important to them, right? That's the truth. There's a genuine love between the two of them, and especially given Jake's situation, that's really important. As we've documented, as we've seen thus far, despite Jake's best efforts, he's not going to have any kind of emotional relationship with anybody, any kind of meaningful relationship. Specifically, we're talking about Brett, right? Try as he might, it's just not going to work out because of his impotence. And this is the one opportunity for Jake to have that kind of emotional connection with somebody, right? To have that kind of important relationship where he is as important to that person as that person is to him. And so I think that's key. And then finally, we get even more insight into Jake, and it's sort of this short little quip here that's very easy to overlook, but I think definitely speaks to the whole Hemingway hero and sort of being aware of who we are and our spot in the universe. And Bill says to Jake, are you really a Catholic? And Jake responds, well, technically. Well, he's Catholic in name only, right? He's raised Catholic. He probably went through the sacraments as a child, that kind of thing, but he is not a practicing Catholic, right? He doesn't go to church, certainly. We certainly haven't seen that. Um, except he goes in Pamplona to the cathedral, but he really doesn't know what to do, right? He doesn't know how to pray. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do. But I think that fits into that whole Hemingway hero thing that we had talked about the early stages of the book. You know, he's Jake is thinking on his own, right? Yeah, technically by name, yes, I am labeled a Catholic, but the church doesn't tell Jake what's right or what's wrong, right? The church doesn't tell Jake what to think. He relies on his own experiences with these people. He relies on his own reflection, right, of certain experiences that he's had in order to guide his values and decide what he believes is right and what he believes is wrong. All right, that puts a wrap on chapter 12. Like I said, pretty short. Talk to you soon.